I have brought back a popular guest, Dr. Ashley Dwyer. How are you doing today?
Hello, you said popular, and I was like, what? How are
Yeah,
you?
good. So I've kind of taken on a new format. Well, not really a new format, but I just ask questions quicker. I
Okay.
don't really have too much fluff at the start of the episode, so I kind of dive right in with some of the hard hitting questions. And one of the things that you are widely known for supporting people with is hormone health within the work that you do. So, within that topic, what do you think is the most misunderstood thing about that?
I think one of the biggest is that your hormones are the reason that you're not seeing results. That is the biggest misunderstood fact.
So if you were to expand on that more, what are the kind of the key points that you draw out to help more people understand?
Yeah, so when we're thinking about hormones, obviously these are very important. They can dysregulated hormones like high cortisol, low thyroid, dysregulated sex hormones, they can all play a really big role when it comes to appetite, activity, all of that. So they can very much make weight loss efforts harder, but they're not the reason for the lack of results or the weight gain. The reason is the lifestyle habits that are behind them that caused your hormones to get dysregulated in the first place.
I like it.
Mhm.
So then if we made it so that people had kind of actionable, tangible things that they could take away from it, what would be maybe three of the basics things that you would set somebody up with if they thought that their hormone health was like the main problem? What would be the way that you kind of like set them up to make the necessary changes to their lifestyle?
Well, this is going to be very specific to the hormone issue itself. So I can't, like, I guess I could try and give some very broad topics, but two hormones that affect everything would be cortisol and insulin. So if we could get blood sugar under control and stress under control, that would help tremendously. So something with stress is obviously stress management practices, not living in a diet phase, not undertraining, overtraining, kind of balancing stressors in the body. And then insulin is going to be really important. And that doesn't mean remove carbs or be fearful of glucose spikes. It just simply means build muscle mass to have more places for glucose to go so that we lower blood glucose. Um, spacing out meals accordingly, not snacking and grazing all day, eating full meals with protein, starting the day heavy with protein, walking more, all of that tremendously helps insulin and cortisol. And those really influence thyroid, sex hormones, all of that.
I like it because sometimes people feel like the basics are inadequate because they're not flashy or they're not exciting or they're not like marketable.
They're
But it
not.
all comes back to like the basics work really, really well, especially if done consistently.
The basics are super boring and they're not marketable. And there's nothing sexy about, like, hey, go out for a walk. Like, they've tried to market it as hot girl walks, but like, that's not, it's more sexy to say, like, buy this hormone balancing supplement and lose like 7 pounds in a week, you know?
hmm So when people see your social media, they'll notice that you have a very authentic personality. Everything that you do is done with integrity. So, is this something that has always been like a staple for you, or has it been like an evolution that's taken some time to refine and like get to where it is now?
I think I've always tried to be very authentic and always just try to be me. Like, it takes more time and energy to be performative and to have a dual personality, if we're being honest. Um, so I don't want to expend that energy to kind of have an internet personality. And then when it comes to integrity, there's just so many people who don't have it in the industry. And integrity goes even further than business. It goes in partnerships and friendships, and I love the notion of practice what you preach, because if I'm hiring someone to help me and they're not even doing what they say they do, and I notice like behind the scenes they're taking a bunch of either PEDs and they're not honest about it, or they're just really misleading people, like, I have zero trust. I've lost respect. So I think integrity is one of the biggest markers of trust and respect, and that means a lot to me.
I mean, like, it's something that should make a person think a lot about the actions that they take. For example, like, I work with a lot of podcasts and
Mhm.
they can get the opportunity to have like different affiliate deals, sponsorship deals, promotion deals. And as like a podcast host, if I took on every deal that I was presented, I would feel like I had lost my integrity. Like there are so many products out there that when you kind of like draft out the cost versus benefit,
Hmm.
or even like the risks versus the rewards, they don't make sense. And the only thing that ever validated them was because somebody else endorsed them and somebody admired that other person. So when it comes to you kind of like discerning between things that you like and you'd vouch for and things that you wouldn't vouch for, what is your process for doing that? And have you found things that you genuinely do vouch for?
Yeah, no, I love that you, first of all, I wanted to give you kudos and a shout out for like being so authentic in your podcast hosting and the brands that you do. One of the examples that stood out immediately was like Huberman is very popular and listened to, but he vouches for AG1, which we know is not clinically effective. So it just, again, integrity. So for me, I get approached with a lot of supplements, products, all these things all the time to be affiliated with. And I don't want to become an account that just like spouts discount codes all over the place, right? So when I'm getting products, the things that I'm currently affiliated with are Legion supplements right now because they're clinically effective. The dosages are right. They're third party tested. So I don't mind, using their protein powder, their creatine, all of that. Another one is a skincare brand out of Australia that is pretty great with like no animal testing, none of that stuff, natural ingredients. I recently became affiliated with Function Health simply for their lab tests. It's not that I promote Mark Hyman, but I think it's a great deal for the bundle they're offering for all of the lab tests that they do. Because, I'm a lab testing girly. I love tests. And the Hume Health Body Pod. Do you know what that is?
Maybe loosely, but if you explain it more, then I'll probably catch on.
It's like a scale that does body fat, a BIA scale, but it has like a thing that you bring up that has your hands too. So it's not just the lower part of your body, it's your whole body. And there's been some testing against the DEXA scan and it's like marginally off. So I think that's like a good trend for people to follow versus just a regular fat burning scale or a body fat percentage scale. So,
I like it. I like it. And the
mm-hmm.
thing that kind of stands out for me is as you're describing the different things that you've tried or you endorse or you see value in, there's always some critical thinking to it,
Yeah.
which like that is going to be a skill that'll get more and more valuable as time goes on. Because I'm a giant nerd. I know what's capable with AI, all that stuff.
Oh my
Like
God.
people are going to be very easily manipulated in the immediate future, if not already in the past. Like we've been manipulated for decades.
Yeah.
It's just now that there's more tools to do it. There's more ways to make things seem genuine, authentic, and real. And then there's more incentives to do so. Like there's the online creator company or economy, I should say, is one of the biggest growing industries because you can create content that sells something. And if it sells something more effectively than like traditional media, then you are going to have an income stream. And for a lot of people, if they have an income stream, they are willing to say whatever it takes to keep that income stream growing because then it becomes sort of like a sink or swim scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so for people who we work with or people who listen to the podcast or follow our media, it's important for us to bring onto them like some really strong critical thinking skills. So, when it comes to that, what would be your advice for people as to how to distinguish between like fact, fiction, clickbait, etc.? Because we got all these podcasts going out there, we got all this stuff, and we have to kind of like draw a line of our own with
Mm-hmm.
regards to our own context.
This is perfect timing because yesterday I just put out a reel that was like, if I wanted to get rich quick in the wellness industry, like this is what I would do. And it's all the things that people should watch out for in regards to grifters and getting scammed. And the really large one is going to be like creating a problem, creating fear around a problem, and then trying to get you bought in through your emotions. Like they're taking advantage of your pain, they're making you feel seen and heard, like this is me, and then they're offering the cure or the supplement or the product and they're the only ones that have it, right? So you have to buy their supplement or buy their product and this will be the answer to all of your issues. And critical thinking comes in here because there's never a one size fits all or a one supplement fits all approach. Even when it comes to GLP-1s, which are the closest we have to making a dent in results, there still needs to be individualized approaches to nutrition, digestion, weightlifting, all of it. So there's never going to be one thing. And if someone's spouting off one thing, immediate unfollow, like immediately know they're scamming you. Another one is the fear mongering. Like, I hate the videos of people going into grocery stores and being like, do you see this? Do you see this gum? This is horrible. Like, not sponsored by own protein shakes. But it's just like, if you're demonizing fruit, if you're demonizing spinach because of oxalates, if you're demonizing all of these things, like to sell your keto or carnivore book or whatever, like it's just cherry picking data. And I think it sounds great, but if it sounds too good to be true, it usually is. Again, we come back to the boring basic shit that works.
Absolutely. And I think it's important that we kind of put that on the forefront because like marketing is and will always be a thing, and there can be marketing for good products and there can be marketing for bad products. Like incredible coaches with good marketing is great because then that person is able to help more people. But then there's also like products that will not solve the problem
Mm-hmm.
that are marketed as though they will. And a lot of people could put a lot of things at stake to buy that product, thinking that that will be the one thing to solve their problem. And their critical thinking skills or their ability to see the big picture as to like how would it be possible for that one variable to fix everything when they're not taking into consideration like genetics, lifestyle, all these other factors that would
Right.
also kind of play into it.
Exactly.
There was something else that I was thinking about as we were kind of discussing that, and I kind of forgot what I was going to ask, so I'm going to pop into a different question. So, um, recently, because I used to have opinions on different like products for recovery or products for like checking performance and stuff like that, I have found that as I've gotten older, I've changed my mind on things. So I've changed my mind on the Aura Ring. I've changed my mind on that because I used to think that, oh, I don't know about that. But now as I get older, I'm like, it has some merit to the right person. I've changed my mind on those like massage guns.
Okay.
About like 8 years ago, I was like, no, like if you just walk and stay mobile and train well, like have a good program and stay hydrated, you should be fine. But then as I've gotten older and as I do jujitsu from time to time, I realized there is some merit to like some like very temporary, very like short term relief
Mm-hmm.
to get to the point where I feel like I'm ready to do the thing. Um, and it is always going to be contextual because if I was talking to a 26-year-old, they'd still be in the place where I was at when I was 26. And so we probably wouldn't see eye to eye necessarily. But if I was talking to somebody in their 30s, they might be like, oh, yeah, yeah, no, that helps me too.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, have you come across anything where you felt a certain way maybe 10 years ago and then you've changed your mind now?
Oh my goodness. I've relearned so much in my own health journey, coaching others. Absolutely. Like, I used to be one of the women who wouldn't eat after a certain time because you gain weight. Like, and now we know like that's not actually real. It's all down to calories in versus calories out, right? Where I needed fasted cardio to burn fat. Absolutely not. Like, I no. Um what else? The like eating fruit before bed or eating like carbs before bed was bad. So just all of those like really restrictive mindsets I used to believe in. When I first started, like I can understand how coaches get into the mindset of like starvation mode exists, but as you learn more and evolve and actually understand how biology, the body works, you're like, never mind. Like, just kidding, I was wrong. And that's like the whole point of data and science, right? Is like it's always changing and new data is always coming out. So you can change your mind. You're allowed to, learn more and see these things. I used to be afraid of certain ingredients and think that I needed to buy all organic. Like, have you ever heard of the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15? Like, I used to swear by those lists. Not anymore. There's been a lot.
I mean, it makes sense though, because people don't know what they don't know. Like in a lot of cases, a person needs to gather a lot of experience to kind of like come up to their own conclusions. And sometimes, even when somebody points us in the right direction based on their experience, we can still be kind of stubborn as to like what path that will take.
Hmm.
So given that scenario, the thing that happens for me is I'll have casual conversations with people all the time, and they'll have listened to like a mainstream podcast, and in most cases, the host has no presence in the fitness industry, but they'll have like a fitness guest. And it's tricky because it's like I want to show compassion, empathy, and understanding as I'm like taking in this information. And they're like, hey, you should listen to this. It would really help you coach me. And so I'm going to listen to it. And I always listen to it like from start to finish. But then I'm able to pick out the things where I'm like, well, not untrue, but it's not 100% true. And there's a lot of like context or nuance to this. All of that said, like, what kind of approach do you take when it's kind of like a tricky topic to breach with a person where they just want to be more informed and they want you to be informed too, but you can already kind of like see where there might be like some pseudoscience or some rat studies, stuff like that?
I will, yeah, yeah, this is great. It's a good question. I will ask them kind of, where they heard the information, why they think it's true. A lot of times people really double down on it because it affirms what they already believed. So, kind of asking where those initial beliefs came from. Maybe it was a family member or a friend, or like you said, even another podcaster or something that had these theories, and now they're surrounded by the algorithmic bubble of like what they already think, right? Like the algorithm just shows you more of what you want to see. So we'll kind of dive through what they already know, and then I'll ask them for evidence to support that. And if they have any, or if they just believe what this person said. And then, depending on the case, I will ask them if they're open to an opposing view, if I can like show them the real data. Like, let's take seed oils, for example, right? And showing them like the real data. And again, all I can do is show you the information and the pros and cons and all of that. And then you ultimately still get to decide what you believe and what you do. But I feel like I've done my due diligence if I educate the correct answer, and then people have free will, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Like something that I found to be helpful when it comes to supplements, I like to present it in like a kind of like a financial example where I can show that not only does it either overshoot certain micronutrients that you don't really need like 700% of a daily intake for,
Mm-hmm.
but also like it is 80% more expensive than if you got these things through Whole Foods kind of thing. Like let's say if we are comparing like AG1 to like a really good grocery haul in the produce
Mm-hmm.
section. And then another approach that I will sometimes take is just kind of like looking at it more in a data driven way rather than in an
Okay.
emotional way, where it's like if you were to schedule these activities into your life for the next like 90 days versus this one protocol into your life in the next 90 days, like the measurable change that's possible with this lifestyle is dramatic. And then the measurable change with like this protocol, let's say it's AG1 because I just hate it. So I will just burn it into the ground. But if they did
Love it.
that, there would be no change. Like they might poop better than they did before because they had no fiber.
Right.
But it wouldn't have nearly as much of a change as if they chose to have like a really nutrient dense salad every day and then walk for 12,000 steps instead of 3,000 steps. Um, but then again, it's like it's everybody's going to need sort of like a different approach to it, which is a segue to my next question for you. So, life changes, people kind of change like their fitness hobbies, they change kind of like when they work out, how they work out, all that stuff. So for you, how has your view of health, even with regards to yourself, changed in the past 5 years?
Yeah, I think for me, I've learned less activity can sometimes be more. Whereas I was the one who was like pushing it 6 or 7 days a week, sometimes two a days, like have to get in cardio and a lift, was doing fasted cardio and then eating like two rice cakes with some peanut butter, but like PB2, not even real peanut butter, and then going into like a leg day. Talk about underfueling, right? So I learned like, okay, we don't actually need to do that. And I'm like definitely inhibiting muscle gain by the amount that I am trying to work out to gain muscle. So less is more in the activity standard. And something that has been dramatic across the board for all women is that like your metabolism is definitely not broken. You're just not eating consistently the same. So you're starving some days, overeating other days. So it's like this roller coaster of a log if we were to track it, or you're consistently under eating for so long that you think that when you eat more you'll gain weight and you really won't. That was the game changer for me, is like I could eat so much more food than I was giving my body credit for, and now that I've built that up, it's almost like a catch 22, because now I'm like, damn, I get to eat all this food, but I'm also like, damn, I have to eat all this food.
Yeah.
Relate, but
That is, it's crazy to come across that scenario where it's like, wow, like what I thought was right was actually not right, and now what I thought was going to kind of like sidetrack me or take me off my path of consistency and momentum is actually the secret weapon for getting me momentum.
yeah. But I think it's so cool because I think a lot of people want to be or think that they're the exception to the rule. They think that like their body is broken. They think that there's nothing they can do to get better. And they take this victim stance, and you're like, why do you want to be the exception? You don't. Like, you want to be the rule. You want there to be an answer. And most, like 9 out of 10 times, 99 out of 100 times, they are the rule. They just get stuck in this like they don't know what they don't know, and then once you're showed, you like have this whole new life that you get to experience, and it is awesome. But too many get stuck in thinking that they're special, for lack of a better word, and like you don't want to be special in this realm. You don't.
Yeah. So a scenario that I want to kind of like play out, and we can have this like as a case study, is when you have to change cities or travel, like basically anything where you're not in your normal structured environment, but then you have to maintain consistency. And I know that you've had to do this when you're going to conferences, visiting family, doing stuff for business, et cetera, et cetera. What are kind of like the staples that you put into your routine to keep that structure consistent when you're going to different restaurants, when you have different social events, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think that's great because a lot of people will struggle out of routine. For me personally, I load up on, like, I make sure to pack all of my supplements and bring them with me. So, I pack all of my pills, I pack all of like creatine in little baggies. Yeah, it looks sketch going through TSA, but they don't care. I pack individual, like a scoop and a half of protein in little baggies for each individual day, because traveling is the hardest to hit protein. It really is when you're not at home. So I always bring extra protein powder with me on conferences or vacations or something so I can at least hit it. I bring a shaker cup. So I bring snacks. I bring things like that that I know I can put into little pieces of the day in between meals. Then when I get there, depending on what it is, if it's a conference or if I'm at home or something like that, I will order groceries to the hotel fridge and at least stock up on like pre-made protein shakes, fiber, protein bars, green juices if I want some extra nutrients, something like that, to kind of just like have, again, more snacks in the fridge and be able to hit fiber. And then when I'm going out for meals, I think of it like I'm not at a conference, right? Like you and I are at a conference not to enjoy crazy food, but just to like expand our knowledge and meet people and build relationships and all of that. So for me, I'm trying to keep the meals as close to what I would normally eat at home when I'm out. And it's awesome because I don't have to cook it. And there's probably more flavor, if we're going to be honest. So I'll always reach for a protein dish first and then veggies, like a salad with dressing on the side. I'll always do like a carb. Carbs are actually very hard for me to hit while traveling. It's like a phenomenon. So I'll have to order, a side of rice, or that's the grocery store thing that I will order is carbs or something like that to fill in the gaps. But you know me, I'm always ordering French fries too. I have to try French fries. Like I try not to limit myself either, but I'll have like 10 instead of the whole order. So there's definitely a don't deprive yourself, but keep as close to your routine as you can, and do like cousin meals per se. Like it looks like a meal that you would have at home, just a little different at a restaurant. And hydrate. That is literally the key to traveling. Just you know, find a gym if you have time to work out. A local gym is so fun. I love exploring
Yeah.
local gyms. I did not work out once in Vegas, I'll be honest, when we were in Vegas. But for 3 or 4 days, that's not going to throw off the trajectory of my life. So, you know,
I think that's
balance.
something that people forget because I like our mutual friend Alex McBurty. He always works out every single day. He does not miss a workout, and I respect and admire him for that. But I kind of play a different style. It's not like I don't value my workouts, but I'm more flexible with them. So I think day one of the conference in Vegas, I did 100 push-ups and like 50 reverse lunges, and that was my workout. That was good, and I
That's
got like
awesome.
15,000 steps. Um, and it's just like we forget that when you zoom out, like those 3, maybe even 4 days, don't make that much of a negative impact, especially if you're able to get pretty close to your macronutrient goals
Hmm.
and your general activity goals. But I think a lot of people will be so critical of themselves that they'll think that if it's not perfect, it's not worth doing at all. And that's something that, like, not only do general population people need to realize is like you can be imperfect and still be successful. So, general population people need to realize that. And also, fitness professionals need to realize that because sometimes fitness professionals will often have something that could profoundly change their community's life and they won't put it out because it's not perfect yet. There's just so many times when perfection could be the biggest like obstacle for getting things done or for getting on track or reaching goals. So when I say that, I feel like you may have experienced that. Do you have any examples of times that's happened for you?
Oh my goodness. I was going to say the all or nothing mindset is something we have to crack open with every single client that comes through our company, myself included. It's what we were ingrained to believe when growing up, kind of. I struggled with it tremendously. I take way messier action than I ever used to in the past. I mean, that's how I started this company, was just like sitting down, buying a domain name, creating Instagram profiles, and being like, let's go. I had no idea what I was doing. And I was like, we're gonna do it. Yes, you have to learn that the two most important things are adherence and consistency. And so if you're doing something where you think you have to be 1,000, like 100% perfect every single day, your life's gonna life. You're not going to be able to be 100% consistent. And so you'll get that failure, that disappointment, and then you will stop adhering to it and you'll stop being consistent with it. And that is what kills all goals. So we need to remember, like, you don't need to go 0 to 100. There is a gray area. One of the best ways to kind of tackle this is helping clients understand how to fit some of their favorite foods into their log so that they don't have to eat 100% clean. Like, they can still have some balance and reach their goals. Like what we're talking about on vacation, if we don't find time to work out, we at least can hit steps and we can at least, like, value something else. Like for Vegas, for example, I prioritized my sleep and building relationships over my workouts those 3 or 4 days because I knew I was going to be out later, connecting with people I don't normally get to see. And I wanted to prioritize sleep so that I felt great for the next couple of days. And me having to wake up at 5 a.m. would not have given me great sleep. So that was what I chose in that moment. But it wasn't like, well, I just, I can't get my workouts and I can't do anything. So I'm going to eat crappy and I'm not even going to worry about steps. And, it doesn't need to be that way. There are things you can still control and prioritize. And you made me think of when you said 15,000 steps in Vegas. I was like, who didn't get 15,000 steps at Caesar's Palace? Like, we were all walking
It was
so
so
much.
easy. Like you just had to leave your room
Yes.
and you got 15,000 steps.
Just walk to the conference center and you got 10,000 easy.
Yeah. So with regards to working on yourself, making these progressions, finding ways to stay consistent, when you're doing all this stuff, like what are the ways that you validate the progress that you've made? Because a lot of people, what they struggle with and what they have a hard time facing is giving themselves credit for what they've done to this point because they're always thinking that it's not enough, they haven't done enough, they'll celebrate when they get to this next point, but it's important to still celebrate nonetheless. And it's not like a fluffy celebrate, like putting on your right shoe kind of thing, but it's like
Hmm.
celebrating things that are like quantifiable, meaningful, and like actually pretty impressive when weighed against like the average. What are the ways that you identify for yourself what needs to be celebrated, and what does that celebration look like?
Yeah, I've had to do a really good job or a really intentional job of celebrating small wins because I am the type of person who's just so goal oriented and crushing tasks that like once I hit one, I'm on to the next, right? It's just the Enneagram 3 in me. I like to achieve. So the ways that I do are I will like just celebrate in my head or I'll journal or I'll do something like that. I'll post it on social media. Um, for fitness goals and things like that, it's celebrating like getting stronger in a movement. Maybe I didn't lose weight or maybe I didn't gain in my bulk or something like that, but being able to progress in a lift is awesome and it feels great. So, like, maybe my body doesn't look different yet, but I can tell I'm obviously getting stronger, energy levels getting better, lab values either going up or coming down in the right way. So, making sure that like we're not tying our success to the scale only, but like non scale victories like that. And then in business, it's more remembering for me. Like I read this quote and it's awesome every single time when someone says it. It's like you're mad that maybe like 30 people signed up for your webinar. But imagine if it was like a long talk or an in person talk and you got to meet every person, all 30 of those people, and get to chat with them individually, like how different that would be in person and how much you're getting to change your life. And you're like, oh, yeah. So we forget that, like, just anyone being interested in coming to see us or any type of win needs to be celebrated versus like, I don't know, downplayed. How do you celebrate wins, Chris? I want to know. Teach me.
Well, thank you. So if I was to celebrate a win, and the thing that I struggle with is a lot of the time I won't even think that I deserve to celebrate something, and some of that has come from like people being critical of the things where I have done well. They're like, "Why do you get that? Why do you get that?" And that's the voice that I hear very loudly. But the way that I kind of reframe the situation is because I've become much more aware of negativity comes from people who are struggling, and people who are doing well are often going to be the most encouraging people in your world. And then sometimes I'll think about like, why am I not on the internet just like criticizing a whole bunch of people and saying that they shouldn't be in the gym and they haven't done enough and their content sucks and all this stuff? And it's because like generally speaking, I'm pretty much at peace with myself, and my whole focus has like, to be quite honest, my focus my whole career has been to be less dumb. Like, to be putting it bluntly, I am always aware of the areas where I could improve. I'm always aware of the areas where I could work harder. I'm always aware of the areas where I could be more like conscious of other people and more just being able to be a bigger picture thinker and not just thinking about the world through my own eyes. And so what helps me throughout the year is when I'm doing my taxes, my bookkeeping, and I'm starting to kind of notice how that's shifting from year to year. When I look at like the people that I've been able to meet and the people who trust me with their businesses, like I've gathered a lot of different like work with a lot of different businesses, and it feels like I almost feel like I'm committing a crime to like point it out because I'm like, oh well, I should just really be quiet about it. But then I realize, no, like that's pretty significant. Like I don't know anybody else who has the roles that I have. And so when it comes to celebrating, what I've learned is it's important to celebrate in ways that are like truly, truly meaningful. And I think you'll kind of share this sentiment because I've seen how much you prioritize like the important things in your personal life, the important things in your family, stuff like that. So for me, celebrating a win is having the freedom and capacity to be able to watch any one of my niece's ringette games that I want. Like they could
That's so
play in the
cute.
middle of the day on Tuesday and I can go watch it. They could play 3 hours away um, on a Sunday night, and I could go watch it. And I could even pick up my dad and drive him there too. And that feels like a win. And then around like I've started a tradition where every time around my birthday, I take myself out to a cabin in the mountains and I just chill there. And it feels like such a flex because it's like Am I going there to go skiing? Nah. Like I could. I have skis, but I
Mhm.
can just to do whatever I want. And it's a time when I can kind of like recap everything that I've done from the year before, where I can kind of give myself credit. But more so, what I like is being able to kind of like remember where I came from. And in most instances, if it was up to me, every celebration that I had would involve like a friend or a family member or something that kept me humble and grounded. Because that's like, if I am having a struggle, those are the people that are going to help me through the struggle. And if I have ever made progress in life, chances are that progress is tied to like mentors that I like to connect with or friends that I like to connect with. And so the more that I kind of like nurture those things, the more resilient I am for the time to come. Like maybe I get into my 40s and different life things are happening, or maybe I'm in my 60s and I need a bunch of old people to talk to about what life's like when you're in your 60s.
Mhm.
And I get super deep and introspective when it comes to kind of like really celebrating wins. Like I would never see myself going and buying a Lamborghini just because I could afford to at one point. I could never see myself doing something that is merely like
Performative.
optics. Yeah, like it would, for me, it would be significant to me because of it being finite. Like I can only do this now, so I'm going to do this now because of how meaningful it is. Like I
Mhm.
really value time with like my I have a lot of aunts and uncles who are in like their 80s and 90s now. And so when I get to visit them, it feels like I won a prize or something that day. And then being able to reconnect with friends that I haven't seen in a while, like whether they be fitness or non fitness, to kind of like if they've got kids, to kind of see how they're raising
Mhm.
their kids or just all these different things. That feels like a win. And to have built a life for myself that I can do that feels like I've done something. Like that feels like the celebration in and of itself. Because if I hadn't gone into the fitness industry, there was plethoras of times when somebody would have come up to me and said, "No, you can't do that. What do you think you can just go do that? You can't do that."
Mhm.
And now I've built a life where it's like, "Oh no, I
Yeah, I can.
can, and I will." So that's what I do.
Not you making me want to immediately like book a trip.
You should. You should. Like this weekend, literally, I'm going to Missouri to support Kyle Dobbs and Matt Domney in their gym. They're building just like this epic gym in Chesterfield, uh, just off of St. Louis. I don't really know the geography that well, but it's part of St. Louis, I believe. And then Jake Boley's going to be there. He has a brand called That Fit
That
Friend.
fit friend. I know Jake.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Jake is a
yeah.
beauty. And
That's
so
so
I'm
crazy.
excited to meet him in person and to support him and hopefully film some content to kind of like help them along, even if they have better content creators there.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of pour into their cup and have some good times, and maybe I'll check out the zoo while I'm there. I heard the zoo is pretty good there.
That's awesome. I do remember his shoe store is opening like this weekend, I think. So that's so cool.
Yeah,
Small
like
world.
it's cool how small the fitness industry is in some capacities where like you find the right people and some people know everybody.
Mhm.
And then you find that like there's a reason why some people know everybody. Like some people are just like they make friends easily. Um, but just the amount of I don't struggle to recognize how much effort other people put into their projects
Mhm.
and how much like emotion and adversity has gone into the things that they care about. I'm like, no, I can feel it. Like, I know that you didn't think that this may have been possible like 10 years ago. And I know that you might have quit the industry like 15 years ago. And like all these things where we can kind of like pick up on these emotions from other people.
Mhm.
And when I can feel that, or when I can acknowledge the times when them being them has like indisputably benefited me, like whether it was the example that they set for me or something profound that they said to me that kind of changed how I did things and made me get more momentum, like by recognizing that, it makes it more meaningful to prove to them that I recognize it. Like I like being able to, like, for example, the Real Coaches Summit, lots of great presenters, but one in
Mm-hmm.
particular, Jeb Stuart Johnston, was presenting, and he made me feel seen back in 2019. Him and I have lots of mutual friends. I consider him a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And he was someone who like kind of slowed down to actually get to know me, not on like a transactional level, but on a really human level. And so I wanted to make sure I did something to make sure that he felt seen. So I brought all my videography stuff and I set up my camera and I did a whole bunch of clips for him and some graphics. And I was
So
like,
cute.
dude, use these if you want. Not there's no catch. Here they
Yeah.
are. They will live on my Google Drive and you can have them whenever you like. Um, and I think by doing that and by like looking deeply into other people's body of work and their accomplishments, it creates more abundance for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we can recognize the great things in the people around us, there's a pretty good chance that we'll have achieved some great things ourselves. And then that's where we have to slow down and like give ourselves some credit now and then. We don't have to be braggadocious about it, but like just by going to the mountains or spending
Mm-hmm.
time with family and being like, I can do this because like I've achieved some measurement of like success or progress kind of thing.
Time freedom. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Um, so with regards to that, what is something in your future that you can like pinpoint that would correlate with the statement of like this is good but I need more? Like what is something that you are aiming for that is more than what you're currently doing?
Well, a couple of things. One of them is more like to start speaking engagements and to be a speaker and a presenter. So I don't, you've probably seen, but I'm speaking at RCS next year. So getting a taste of that and putting my foot in the door that way. So I really want to practice that. It's so funny. I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking, and now I'm like, sign me up for stages. Another thing that I am wanting to do is put together a specific PCOS cohort for women. So running like a little group coaching cohort for PCOS because it's become just something that we're really like passionate about and helping a lot of women through. And then the third thing is going to be potentially in 2026 opening up a mentorship for coaches. So, a few things on the docket that I want to do more of, while
I
also
like it.
keeping coaching.
Yeah. And it's funny because like I'll ask people about how they like put more balance in life or how they give themselves credit for what they're already doing. And then I'm like catch 22 asking them,
What
how are
else
you
do you
doing
want to
more?
do?
What more can you do? Um, but the cool thing about it is like, I mean, a lot of these things, it's like they're as good as done. Like I'm already looking forward to your presentation at the Real Coaches Summit next year because I've already got my ticket and I'll be sitting in front row for sure.
Yay!
Um, because I like to just like really support people that I feel like I actually know, and it's not that I don't support people that I don't know. It's just it means that much more when you've had like conversations with them and you have like some kind of a connection. Um, the other thing is that whenever I talk to people about their goals on the podcast, it's kind of like this cool little time capsule. And in most cases, it works out pretty good. Like if the person stays on the path that they're on, I can go to the podcast, like let's say a year, 2 years from now. In most instances, the person who said the thing that they were going to do 1 or 2 years from now has progressed beyond that kind of like pinpoint. Even if they had to make some like lateral moves and like just shift some things and rework some things,
Mm-hmm.
the simple fact that they had that thing on their mind of what they were going to do and they were focused on that thing seems to predict that change in the future. And there's a lot of people who I've talked to on the show where I'm like, do you set goals for yourself? And they're like, nah, I don't set goals. I'm not like that. Like
Wing it.
I stay consistent. I'm just driven and things just happen. And I'm like, well, you kind of have to set some like palpable goals, like goals that you can see and feel and touch.
It's a
So it'll be
target.
kind of exciting to see how that unfolds.
Your podcast is like a manifestation portal.
Yeah.
I love it.
And well, it's cool because like over the last I think month or so, I've been transcribing episodes from like 2018, because I'm probably going to put together a project, something along the lines of either like I'll probably release a book at some point. I don't know how
Amazing.
I will do it. Like I know logistically how I will do it, but I don't know creatively how I'll do it because I could do it as a compilation of quotes, or I could do it as a journey of like the the ups and downs of my career to kind of be something along the lines of like this is how I do it if there's any lessons that are valuable to somebody who would want to follow in the same path. But then I could also pull out like 50 different stories. There's countless people who have come on my podcast to talk about how they just got engaged, how they just became a parent. They've talked about loss. They've talked about new business ventures. They've talked about failed business ventures. So there's a lot that I can draw out from it. But that said, having gone back from 2018 and going through like episodes, has been that's been something that's helped me to kind of see some of my wins because like I hear my voice back then and I hear like the topics that we're talking about and I hear the topics that my guests are talking about. I'm like I see growth in my guest, I see growth in myself. There's some people who like the momentum they've gained in their life personally and professionally is like profound. Like I don't know if you've ever seen Case Kenny graphics on Instagram.
Love him.
I've had him on my show like 2 or 3 times.
No way.
When I first
So
had him on
cool.
my show, he had like 30,000 followers and nobody knew who he was. Well, like people knew who he was, but not to the
Yeah.
scale that people know now. And I was basically getting ready for a shift at the bar. I worked at the bar on weekends and I was just kind of doing a few training sessions at the gym during the week and I was a spin instructor. And so I recorded with Case Kenny, published it, then I headed off to work at the bar. And now like I'm like I am not in any need to work at a bar to pay my bills. It was a
Yeah.
good experience and I think everybody should do it at some point because it teaches you
I
a
did
lot of
it.
like emotional intelligence.
I did it.
But like to see how things can change with time and consistency and dedication is huge. And so people will see somebody like even like so many fitness professionals out there. Like Jordan Syatt he's always been someone who is widely known, but the progress that he's made and the ways that he's been able to put in like distinction into who he is and who
Mhm.
he is not and still maintain some momentum, not without adversity. Like he does face a lot of like
Mhm.
just harsh attitudes on the internet for
Yeah, he
no good
does.
reason.
Mhm.
But to see how he has shifted from being like a notable online persona to being someone who is living life on his terms, where he's able to set stronger boundaries, where he's able to create an environment for his family, where he's able to kind of like fulfill some of his philanthropic passions and strengthen some of the connections that may have felt like surface level when they're all limited to online, but now he can do more of his in-person connections and stuff.
Mhm.
To see like transformations like that is really, really cool. But I've literally gone on a tangent here, so I'm going to ask you one or two more questions.
Sure.
So here it is. What is one wellness hill that you'll die on?
Mm. One wellness hill would be that, I mean, my slogan, it's not your hormones, it's your lifestyle.
Yeah. I like it. I mean, it's something that for somebody with limited experience, they'll be like, how could that be true?
Yeah.
Because they haven't had the exposure to all the different messaging. They haven't had the exposure to like um, just what happens when you try things and find out.
Mhm.
Like there's there's plenty of supplements that over the last 20 years I'll try it, I'll find out, and after I find out, then I know that really didn't do anything for me. Like for
No.
me, personally, I get no value from like a pre-workout. I don't I don't think that it's a useless supplement because I think some people do get value from it, but personally, it doesn't help me. And
Caffeine.
I benefit more from like just being adequately rested and maybe having a black coffee beforehand. But I
Mm,
wouldn't have came to that conclusion unless I went through a season of life where I tried a bunch of different pre-workouts to find out what happened. And so when a person lacks kind of like the life experience to kind of like weave into their decisions,
yeah.
then it can be easier for them to kind of like make very firm, hard stances that, well, of course this would work because they said it would work and I need it to work. So based on me needing it to work, it works.
Placebo effect is so real. As a
Yeah.
pharmacist, I can say placebo effect is so real.
Yeah. But with that said, I am going to ask you if you have one piece of advice for our audience based on everything that we said, just a takeaway that they can walk away with.
Yeah, I think my takeaway today, it depends on the day, right? And right now, I really just want to tell people to edit their following. Like everyone's on social media, everyone's looking at all this content, and your algorithm's built on what you're interested in, not even what you need to see, not even the people you follow. So if you're coming across a bunch of content that is like what we spoke about in the beginning, the fear mongering, the grifters, the scam artists, the supplements, the too good to be true, like we really need to unfollow these people. We really need to stop just consuming that content and thinking more critically and getting more discernment in the picture. That would be my advice today because I think it's doing so much more harm than good, and we're confusing people more than ever. We're having to disprove things more than ever. Like you and I, like not you and I, but like creators, coaches who we know in the industry are spending a lot of time having to disprove other content versus just like putting out value. I mean, not that that's not value, it's just a different type of value, right? So I think if there was less misinformation and we gave those people less of a platform, the world would be way better.
Totally agree. And then with that, I think we will call this episode a success. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you again for having me on. I can't wait to link it to episode 1 and go back and like listen to that one too.
Totally.